Welcome back. In this video, we'll dive deep into all the support units in Conflict of Nations. You'll learn the strengths and weaknesses of each support unit, the different uses for each unit, and how to effectively deploy them in various terrains. We'll also cover the preferred doctrine for each unit, when to use support units, which units each support unit counters, and which units can destroy them. Plus, we'll explore some amazing strategies for using support units, like the hit and run technique. Awesome! Let's start by talking about towed artillery, the most basic support unit. Towed artillery is primarily used for bombarding enemy units, firing shells in a high trajectory at stationary targets. This unit is highly effective early on because it's relatively cheap, since it doesn't require electronics, and it can also be researched and built from day one. However, it comes with several disadvantages. First, towed artillery has no anti-air capabilities, making it extremely vulnerable to planes and helicopters. Second, its damage output is quite low, especially against ships and heavily armored units like tanks. But the biggest drawback is its limited range. Max-level towed artillery only has a range of 75. This makes it an easy target for other artillery units, such as multiple rocket launchers, also known as MRLs, which can strike from a range of 100 without fear of retaliation. However, despite these weaknesses, towed artillery can be useful early-game strategies. As for what towed artillery counters, it counters soft targets, like infantry. This means you should focus on using your towed artillery to attack infantry units whenever possible. However, towed artillery has many counters, including planes, helicopters, ships, and missiles. In fact, even infantry can counter towed artillery if they engage it directly, due to towed artillery having very weak defensive stats. Because of this, always keep your artillery at a safe range from infantry or use the highly effective hit-and-run technique, which I'll explain later in the video. To maximize the effectiveness of towed artillery in different terrains, position your units in mountains. Because mountain terrains, towed artillery will gain 25% attack boost and a 100% increase in sight range. If enemy units are in other terrains, bait them into mountain areas where your artillery is positioned. On the other hand, avoid placing towed artillery in forests, jungles, or frozen ice terrains, as these reduce its attack power by 50%. Regarding doctrines, the Eastern Doctrine is the only one that enhances towed artillery, granting it a plus 20% armored damage bonus. Hence, you're playing a country under the Eastern Doctrine, towed artillery is more viable. If you're unsure about your country's doctrine, join the Discord server linked in the description, where you will find a dedicated channel listing the doctrines of all countries. Personally, I don't recommend building towed artillery since there are much better artillery units available. However, if you do decide to build it, focus on early game usage, due to it being cheap, quick to produce, and it fits perfectly with the limited economy of the early game. Additionally, another benefit is that in early game, most of the towed artillery counters and superior artillery units won't be as common early on as they will be in the mid or late game, where stronger, longer range units will completely outclass towed artillery. Now, let's talk about mobile artillery. Mobile artillery is a self-propelled artillery unit designed to bombard enemy forces. It's highly effective due to its relatively low cost, early research availability, high health points, very fast movement, and strong damage output against hard targets. However, mobile artillery has many weaknesses. It deals low damage to soft targets like infantry, has a limited range compared to other artillery units, making mobile artillery vulnerable to longer-range artillery like multiple rocket launchers, and mobile artillery also lacks anti-air defense, leaving it exposed to enemy planes and helicopters. However, despite these drawbacks, mobile artillery is still excellent, especially for mid-game, where both damage and durability become very important, making it a great unit to use in mid-game. When it comes to counters, mobile artillery is highly effective against hard targets like tanks and most vehicles. Additionally, also counters towed artillery due to its superior range. Additionally, it does some damage to infantry, but it is minor damage. On the flip side, mobile artillery has several counters. It is vulnerable to planes, helicopters, most ships, multiple rocket launchers due to their superior range, and missiles. Additionally, even tanks and infantry can counter mobile artillery if they engage it directly, hence you should always position your mobile artillery at a safe distance from enemy forces, and bomb them from a distance. To maximize the effectiveness of mobile artillery, then you should always position your mobile artillery in mountainous areas when possible, as mountains grant a 25% attack bonus to your mobile artillery. Conversely, avoid placing mobile artillery in forests or jungles, as these terrains reduce both its damage and defense by 25%. Therefore, ideally, you should bait enemy forces into mountain areas while avoiding combat in forests or jungles. Regarding doctrines, the European doctrine benefits mobile artillery the most. Because under this doctrine, mobile artillery receives a 5% boost in infantry damage and a 20% increase in health points, making it more durable in combat. As for building mobile artillery, I generally don't recommend it since in most situations there are better artillery options with greater range. However, there are specific scenarios where mobile artillery can be extremely useful and even superior to other artillery types. The key situations where mobile artillery is most effective include: 1. If you are playing as a country under the European doctrine. 2. If you are a landlocked nation. 3. If you have a high component production, this is particularly important because if your component production is low, investing in mobile artillery may force you to sacrifice naval and air force investments, which is not ideal. 4. If most other players in your game are not building multiple rocket launchers or mobile artillery. If you meet at least 3 of these conditions, then I strongly suggest investing in mobile artillery again. Awesome! Now, let's move on to multiple rocket launchers. Multiple rocket launchers, MRLs, are self-propelled artillery units designed for long-range bombardment. They are incredibly effective due to their long range, high damage output against both soft and hard targets, strong effectiveness against naval units, and high health points. However, MRLs come with significant drawbacks. Their high production cost and long build time make them one of the most expensive artillery units to deploy, both in terms of the initial investment required to build it and ongoing maintenance. Additionally, like other artillery units, they have almost no protection against enemy air forces or helicopters, making them vulnerable to air attacks. Another key factor to consider is that MRLs deal considerable damage to civilian populations, which can be dangerous, as this will drastically lower your morale. Despite these downsides, multiple rocket launchers are the best artillery units for late-game scenarios, where range and firepower become the most critical factors in this stage of the game. Multiple rocket launchers counter a wide range of units. They are effective against soft targets like infantry, hard targets such as tanks and mobile SAM launchers, and even all types of ships if within range. They also counter other artillery when used strategically. Later in the video, I'll show you the best tactics to maximize their effectiveness and the ways in which you can counter other artillery. However, despite that, multiple rocket launchers have significant weaknesses. They are highly vulnerable to helicopters, planes, and missiles since they have no built-in air defense. That's why it's crucial to protect your multiple rocket launchers with anti-air units. Later in the video, I'll also show you how to build a powerful unit stack that eliminates all these weaknesses and counters while still including multiple rocket launchers. To use multiple rocket launchers effectively, always position them in mountain terrains, where they will, like other artillery, also receive a 25% damage bonus. Additionally, make sure to avoid placing them in forests or jungles, as these terrains reduce both their attack and defense by 25%. Like with other artillery units, try to lure your enemies into mountain terrain for maximum damage while avoiding engagements in forests or jungles. As for the doctrines, unlike other artillery units, multiple rocket launchers don't gain any specific advantages or disadvantages from any doctrine, meaning they perform the same across all doctrines. If you plan to build multiple rocket launchers, I highly recommend doing so, but you should only start in the mid-game or later, as building them in early game will drain all your resources. Researching them to level 2 as soon as possible is essential, as this increases their range. By the late game, fully upgraded multiple rocket launchers will have superior range and damage compared to all other artillery units, making them one of the most powerful units in the game. However, producing and maintaining them requires a very strong economy, so be sure to upgrade your supply and electronics production to avoid resource shortages. I'll also cover advanced strategies and tactics for using them effectively later in the video. However, that said, if you meet all the conditions I previously outlined for mobile artillery, it's better to build mobile artillery over rocket launchers. Now, let's move on to mobile anti-air vehicles, often referred to as MAA. Mobile anti-air vehicles are defensive units designed to protect advancing forces from air threats. Mobile anti-airs are highly effective against helicopters and drones. They deal significant damage to planes and can even inflict minor damage on missiles, making them a strong choice for air defense. However, mobile anti-air vehicles come with several disadvantages. Their range is relatively low, making them vulnerable to the patrol tactic used by experienced players, where planes can attack them without taking damage. Additionally, compared to other anti-air units, their shorter range puts them at a disadvantage in direct engagements. Another key limitation is that they cannot target high-altitude aircraft such as stealth bombers or satellites unless upgraded. Additionally, mobile anti-air units are also costly to produce and maintain, as they require both supplies and components, making them resource-intensive. On top of that, they are ineffective against ground and naval units, meaning they must rely on other support units for full battlefield effectiveness. Think of mobile anti-air as a multi-role. Mobile anti-air can be used for shooting a lot of things mediocrely. As for what mobile anti-counters, then mobile anti-air is extremely effective at countering helicopters and drones, very effective against planes too unless they use the patrol technique, and can counter missiles if enough mobile anti-airs are grouped together. However, mobile anti-air is vulnerable to several unit types. For example, it is countered by hard targets such as tanks and most artillery, as well as soft targets like infantry and towed artillery. Naval units can also pose a threat if mobile anti-air is placed near the sea, and aircraft can exploit its weaknesses using the patrol tactic effectively. To maximize the effectiveness of mobile anti-air in different terrains, avoid placing your mobile anti-air in mountains, forests, jungles, or frozen terrains. In these environments, mobile anti-air will suffer a 25% attack penalty and potentially a 25% defense reduction as well. Unfortunately, this unit has no terrain advantages, only disadvantage. Do its best to position your mobile anti-air in open terrains whenever possible. Regarding doctrines, the European doctrine provides the most benefit to mobile anti-air. Playing under this doctrine grants a 20% damage boost against helicopters, making it a more viable choice for European doctrine countries. As for building mobile anti-air vehicles, I generally do not recommend it, as there are more effective anti-air defense units, which I will cover in the next section. However, if your enemies rely heavily on helicopters and mobile SAM launchers, it may be a good idea to produce mobile anti-air vehicles specifically to counter helicopters. In that case, always pair them with mobile radar units to effectively detect enemy aircraft. Sweet, let's now talk about mobile SAM launchers. Mobile SAM launchers, also known as SAMs, are mobile surface-to-air missile systems that provide medium-range air defense against most missiles and fixed-wing fighters. They are also highly effective against cruise missiles. One of the key strengths of mobile SAM launchers is their massive damage output against airplanes, making them the most effective support unit for countering enemy aircraft. Additionally, SAMs have a longer range than mobile anti-air units and are highly effective against stealth units like stealth bombers and advanced drones, which are otherwise difficult to counter. They are also excellent for city and infrastructure defense against air raids, thanks to their extensive range and high damage against aircraft. However, despite these advantages, mobile SAM launchers have several disadvantages. They are extremely vulnerable to ground attacks from any type of unit, including infantry, tanks, and artillery. SAMs are also relatively slow compared to mobile anti-air units and require a significant investment in electronics, supplies, and rare materials. Furthermore, SAMs do not engage low-flying helicopters, and SAMs are also very highly dependent on radar units to engage targets effectively. Unlike mobile anti-air, which can engage multiple threats, SAM launchers serve a single purpose, shooting down planes and cruise missiles, and they do so with extreme efficiency. Hence, in conclusion, mobile SAM launchers hard counter all types of aircraft and also soft counter missiles. However, several units can effectively counter mobile SAM launchers. Infantry, tanks, and artillery can quickly destroy unprotected SAMs, while helicopters and special forces can also obliterate SAMs in direct engagements. Additionally, professional players can exploit a weakness in SAMs by baiting them to activate their air defense system, forcing them to reload. During this reload period, enemies can launch missiles or direct airstrikes, making the SAM launcher anti-air useless whilst it reloads. Although this tactic is rare, it is something to be aware of. To maximize the effectiveness of mobile SAM launchers in different terrains, then make sure to avoid placing mobile SAM launchers in jungle terrains, where they will suffer a 25% defense penalty. Unfortunately, like mobile anti-air units, SAM launchers do not gain any advantages in any terrain, only disadvantages, hence deploy your SAM launchers in any territory that are not jungle terrains. Regarding doctrines, the Eastern Doctrine benefits mobile SAM launchers the most, granting them an extra 20% damage against aircraft. As for whether you should build mobile SAM launchers, I highly recommend doing so. They are the best anti-air unit against aircraft and deal significant damage to missiles, allowing them to provide strong protection for all your forces. However, if you plan to use mobile SAM launchers, keep these key points in mind. Firstly, if you are heavily investing in mobile SAM launchers, you should also invest in air superiority fighters. This combination ensures strong air defense, as the SAM launchers will take care of enemy planes while the air superiority fighters will counter helicopters, eliminating one of the main weaknesses of SAMs. This pairing also benefits your economy, as mobile SAM launchers require supplies while air superiority fighters require components, preventing you from overloading a single resource. Secondly, always pair mobile SAM launchers with mobile radar units. This will allow SAMs to detect enemy aircraft and engage them effectively while also identifying incoming ground threats, enabling you to retreat in time if necessary. For research, start unlocking mobile SAM launchers early in the game and upgrade them in the mid-game to improve their range, speed, and damage. By the late game, you should have them fully maxed out so they can counter all types of stealth units, which many players will likely have by then. Awesome. With that said, let's now talk about theater defense systems. Theater defense systems, also known as TDMs, are long-range surface-to-air missile systems designed to provide heavy air coverage in a specific area. These units are highly effective against missiles, intercepting and neutralizing incoming ballistic and cruise missiles. Theater defense systems are crucial for protecting your homeland cities and annexed cities from missile attacks. Additionally, theater defense systems deal some damage to aircraft. One of the unique aspects of theater defense systems is their ability to intercept both ballistic and cruise missiles, something other units cannot do as effectively. They also have an exceptionally large range, especially when fully upgraded, allowing them to cover a wide area. Furthermore, their upgrades significantly improve interception range, damage, and overall performance, making them an excellent long-term investment for missile defense. However, despite these strengths, theater defense systems have several weaknesses. One of their main limitations is that they are purely defensive and cannot actively attack ground, air, or naval units unless they are defending against them. Another major disadvantage is their extremely high cost. They require a substantial amount of supplies and electronics. Additionally, they can only be mobilized in a level 5 military base, which is extremely expensive, making them viable only in the late game. Like mobile SAM launchers, theater defense systems serve a single primary function, intercepting missiles, and they do so with extreme efficiency. With that said, let's talk about what theater missile defense systems counter. Theater missile defense systems hard counter missiles and can also soft counter aircraft, although it is not recommended to build theater missile defense systems specifically to fight against aircraft. As for what counters theater missile defense systems, there are several units that can easily take them down, such as direct attacks from infantry, tanks, and artillery. These units will quickly destroy your theater missile defense systems if they are not properly protected. Helicopters and special forces can also counter theater missile defense systems in direct attacks. Additionally, like SAM launchers, if you're playing against professional players, they may bait your theater missile defense systems into activating their air defense, then strike while they are reloading with missiles or direct air attacks. However, this technique is not commonly used. To make the most out of theater missile defense systems in different terrains, avoid placing them in jungle terrains, as they lose 25% of their defense. Unfortunately, theater missile defense systems do not receive any advantages in any terrain, only disadvantages. So, ensure that you position them in any territory that isn't a jungle. Regarding doctrines, no doctrine provides buffs to theater missile defense systems. As for building theater missile defense systems, I highly recommend doing so, as they are incredibly effective against missiles and the best unit to counter them. However, you should only start building them in the late mid-game or late game, as they are extremely expensive and what theater missile defense systems counter like missiles aren't typically built until mid to late game. If you build TDMs too early, they will be completely useless. That said, there is one scenario where you should build theater missile defense systems earlier, if other countries are researching and building missiles. To determine if your enemies are developing missiles, check the newspaper for any reports of research into conventional warheads. If you see this, immediately start building theater missile defense systems. When deploying theater missile defense systems, place them strategically alongside mobile radars in your homeland, annexed cities, or other key defensive points. The radar will detect incoming missiles, allowing the theater missile defense systems to intercept them before they hit. Strategically placing theater missile defense systems in these locations will greatly increase the odds of keeping your city safe, reducing the risk of needing to rebuild structures, dealing with low morale, or suffering civilian casualties. Later in the video, I will show you exactly how to position these units for maximum effectiveness. Awesome! Let's now talk about mobile radars. Mobile radars are used for searching, detecting, and tracking units. These are mobile vehicles equipped with advanced electronic systems that map a wide range of targets, from very high to very low altitudes. They are excellent at spotting ground and naval units and are particularly effective at revealing fixed-wing aircraft. Mobile radars also possess an impressive range and are relatively cheap compared to other units and provide essential support for all kinds of artillery and anti-aircraft units. Additionally, they are quite fast and when fully upgraded, can detect stealth units. However, despite these advantages, mobile radars have no offensive capabilities, meaning they must rely on other units for protection. They also have very limited naval applications compared to other detection units like AWACS or naval patrol aircraft. Furthermore, unlike UAVs, they are not stealthy, making them easier to target. As for what mobile radars counter, they don't directly counter anything, they only reveal enemy units. Regarding what counters mobile radars, every unit capable of dealing damage can destroy them. This makes it crucial to protect your mobile radars. Hence, make sure you avoid sending them directly into the battlefield unguarded. When it comes to terrain, mobile radars are neither benefited nor hindered by any specific terrain type, so don't worry about terrains when using your mobile radars. The same applies to doctrines. There are no doctrine-based buffs for mobile radars. As for building mobile radars, I highly recommend doing so, as they are incredibly useful for revealing the radar signatures of enemy units. I suggest starting to build them around day 10 and quickly upgrading their research to level 3, as this allows them to detect ground units. After that, further research isn't necessary until the late game. Additionally, always pair your radars with your Air Force anti-air units like SAM launchers, artillery, or mobile anti-air and ground units. This ensures that your Air Force knows where to strike, your artillery knows where to hit, your ground units know which areas are undefended for easy invasion, and your anti-air vehicles can engage enemy aircraft sooner. Awesome! That wraps up the information on ground units. Now, let's dive into artillery, how to use it, and the best tactics. Let's start with one of the most important and common tactics when using artillery, the hit-and-run technique. This is an amazing strategy used by experienced players, allowing you to eliminate many enemy units without losing any of your own. As a result, it also improves your kill-to-death ratio, also known as KD ratio. In fact, many players achieve a high KD ratio simply by mastering this hit-and-run strategy. The hit-and-run technique involves firing at an enemy unit that is advancing toward you, then immediately retreating while your artillery reloads. Once it has reloaded, you fire again, retreat, and repeat this process until the enemy units are destroyed. If the enemy decides to retreat, you can push further into their territory with your units. This technique is especially effective against infantry and armored units. The next, more advanced technique is hit and rush. This is similar to hit and run, but instead of using the move button, you press the rush button after firing. This allows you to escape quickly and avoid enemy retaliatory fire. This strategy is very effective against all types of artillery and ships, but it should only be used against these units. Since rushing causes a small loss of hit points, but this is minimal compared to the damage you would take from enemy artillery or ship fire. Additionally, if the enemy is active, they may chase you and try to bomb your units in return. If they rush toward your units, keep rushing back. When your artillery reloads while rushing, fire again quickly and continue rushing back. This way, you outmaneuver the enemy by consistently landing hits, costing them health, while you take no hits yourself. To use this tactic masterfully, you need to time your shot right when your artillery reloads. As soon as it reloads, you want to hit the enemy unit and immediately move back. You also need to be aware of the enemy's attack range and make sure to escape their range circle to avoid being hit. For this technique, multiple rocket launchers are the most effective since they have the biggest range of all artillery. This means you will never be at a disadvantage. If you use towed artillery, for example, you won't have a chance of hitting and outrunning a multiple rocket launcher, as MRLs have nearly doubled the range when maxed out. The other basic but essential tactic you should always use is the radar and artillery strategy. This tactic is crucial for executing other strategies like hit and run, fortifying positions, and more. Artillery units such as multiple rocket launchers lack vision, meaning they cannot strike enemies without spotting them first. This is where radar units come in. By placing a mobile radar near your artillery, you provide it with the necessary vision to target enemy positions and execute other tactics like hit and run. Additionally, always make sure to upgrade your radars to level 3 or higher. At level 3, mobile radars gain the ability to detect ground units, which is essential for your artillery to bomb their targets. So, as soon as you research mobile radars, make sure to level them up to Tier 3 so your radars can detect air, naval, and ground units. As an alternative to mobile radars, you can also use unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, or airborne early warning aircraft, AWACS. These units also provide vision on enemy units, but mobile radars remain the most effective choice. Awesome! Now, let's go over another highly effective tactic that few people know or talk about, which is using combat outposts as fortified positions to increase your health points and reduce incoming damage. If you're engaged in a stationary artillery fight, I highly recommend building a combat outpost in the province where your artillery is stationed. This is because, if your artillery gets hit, the damage reduction can go up to 69%. So, for example, if your combat outpost is maxed out and an enemy artillery stack hits you for 100 damage, instead of suffering the full 100 damage, your outpost will absorb 69% of it. This means you'll only take 39 damage instead of 100, drastically reducing your losses. To use a combat outpost effectively, first choose a province on the battlefield where you have enough range to strike enemy units. Then, build an outpost and queue it up to level 3 to maximize damage reduction. Only upgrade it to level 3 if it's going to be a tough fight with limited movement and a high concentration of enemy units. To further enhance this strategy and increase your damage output, I suggest building your combat outpost on mountainous terrain. As previously explained, mountains provide a 25% damage bonus to artillery units. Additionally, enemy units move slower in mountain terrain, allowing you to hit and run more effectively within the same province. Once your combat outpost is built, position your artillery units in that province. From there, begin targeting enemy units. If the enemy retaliates with counterfire, you'll have a huge advantage since their damage will be significantly reduced thanks to the outpost's protection. You can also combine this strategy with the hit and run tactic. For example, fire from the combat outpost, then retreat within the same province but outside the enemy's attack range. By using both tactics together, you create an extremely powerful defensive strategy. If your hit and run tactic is successful, you will completely avoid damage while dealing damage to the enemy. Even if the tactic fails and you do get hit, the combat outpost will minimize your losses, allowing you to have an immense advantage over your opponent. Another alternative to combat outposts is bunkers, but these require more resources and can only be built in cities. You can use the same strategies and tactics with bunkers as you would with combat outposts. However, the key difference is that bunkers must be placed inside cities, whereas combat outposts can be placed anywhere. I recommend building bunkers instead of combat outposts if you are defending a city with low morale, low population, and facing an enemy attack. Bunkers can be very effective in this scenario, as they will help address all these issues by increasing defensive strength, reducing civilian casualties, and helping maintain morale too. Hey, just a note, if so far you have found these tactics and strategies helpful, feel free to subscribe and like the video so that way I can keep making videos and guides like this. Awesome! With that said, let's now talk about the last very advanced and highly effective tactic you can use, air assaulting with artillery to destroy enemy units. This tactic involves using artillery to get behind enemy lines and attack helpless but strategic units, such as mobile SAM launchers, stationary planes and helicopters in airfields, or even important buildings like airfields, which will destroy the enemy's ability to provide air support. To employ this tactic, follow these steps. First, select 5 towed artillery units and group them into a single stack. Then select the air assault option and tap on a strategic location where you want to deploy them. And boom! The air assault will begin, and once your artillery lands, you can start bombing the strategic area or enemy units you targeted. Additionally, keep in mind that this tactic only works with towed artillery, and it must be researched to at least level 4 for it to gain the air assault ability. However, before executing this tactic, ensure there are no mobile SAM launchers, anti-air units, or air superiority fighters in the area. Because if these units are present, your air assault will be destroyed before it even lands. Furthermore, the range of your air assault depends on the nearest airfields or airports, so always consider their placement when planning your strategy. Perfect! Those are all the essential tactics and strategies for using support units effectively. Now, let's move on to building the best stacks with support units, allowing you to obliterate and conquer your enemies with minimal casualties or trouble. In this game, there are several amazing stacks you can produce, but the most effective one I have found over years of playing this game is the one I will teach you here, which will help you beat 99.8% of players in the game. Keep in mind you should be aiming to build these stacks in the late game, as most of these units cost a lot of resources and time to make. With that said, let us now talk about the unstoppable support unit stack you can build. Combined with the tactics I taught you, you will be able to beat anyone. Awesome! With that said, let us get into the stack composition. We will build stacks with 10 units each because if you have more than 10 units in a stack, your damage, speed, and defense will be nerfed. The first stack will consist of 1 tank officer and 9 multiple rocket launchers. If you have not built multiple rocket launchers, then you can substitute them with any other type of artillery. This stack is your main hitter. The goal of this stack is to destroy and attack enemy units. By using this stack, you will deal massive damage, and the tank officer will provide a huge boost to all stats. It is the best type of officer to combine with your artillery. However, you must make sure this stack does not directly engage in combat with enemy units on the battlefield. This stack should only bomb enemy units from a distance and never engage in direct combat because if it does, it will be destroyed and become useless. To ensure this stack remains effective, you can employ many tactics I previously taught you, such as the hit and run tactic, to avoid direct engagement while still dealing damage. Perfect, that is the first stack. The second stack consists of 9 mobile SAM launchers and 1 mobile radar. If you have railguns unlocked, they can serve as an alternative to the mobile SAM launchers, but make sure they are researched to at least level 2 since that is when they unlock their anti-air capabilities. This stack is designed to completely shut down enemy air attacks. It will destroy any type of plane, missile, or bomber that tries to attack you, making all your units immune to enemy air forces. It is essential that you keep this stack very close to your other stacks. If it is too far away, enemy planes will be able to destroy your artillery and other units before the SAM launchers can defend them. Just like the artillery stack, this stack should not engage in direct combat, as its only purpose is air defense and unit detection. If possible, it is better to keep this stack hidden so the enemy does not know you have SAM launchers. This way, they will unknowingly send planes into your other unit defenses, which will result in them being completely destroyed. Awesome! As for the third and final stack, it consists of 5 air superiority fighters and 5 strike fighters. If you have elite strike fighters, then they will work even better. The role of the air superiority fighters is to defend against helicopters and incoming air assaults, as they will completely obliterate these types of units. However, make sure these planes do not engage with any enemy anti-air units, or they will be destroyed. As for the strike fighters or elite strike fighters, their role is to destroy enemy units that do not have air defense. For example, if your artillery stack manages to destroy the enemy's air defenses, you can then use your strike fighters to clear the rest of the enemy's units, allowing you to advance into enemy territory much faster. Just like the air superiority fighters, make sure not to use this unit against any enemy anti-air units, or they will get destroyed. To add to that, a very advanced tactic you can use is to bait enemy planes into your silent mobile SAM launcher stack. When you send strike fighters into the sky, the enemy player will instinctively send air superiority fighters to engage them. This is when you move your planes toward your SAM launcher stack. Once the enemy planes enter the SAM launcher's range, they will be completely destroyed, or at the very least heavily damaged. When using this strategy, just make sure not to engage your planes against enemy surface-to-air defenses. If executed properly, this tactic can be extremely effective and costly for your opponents. With these three stacks and tactics combined, you will have an unstoppable force that counters every unit in the game. Nothing will be able to stop this strategy. Using these stacks, you will be able to advance into enemy territory successfully. The best way to secure victory is to move these units into the enemy's homeland cities and capital. Once captured, the enemy will be severely weakened and will have a very low chance of recovering. From there, use infantry to take the remaining territories and secure the win. That is it. With this strategy, you will dominate the game. Awesome! Now you know about every support unit in the game and the best tactics and strategies with it. If this video helped you out, please consider subscribing so I can keep making videos like this. Good luck!